Mom is no use anymore. She just runs up the utility bills. Please don't turn my house into a nursing home. Logan's voice, the son I once held all night when he had a high fever, rang out like a sentence. The door flew open, a suitcase was hurled onto the steps, and the impact knocked the wedding photo from my arms. The glass frame shattered under my daughter-in-law's heel. Outside, rain poured down in white sheets, and I stood still, my hand gripping the old phone that was recording every word they said. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just bent to pick up the glass and said softly, "Fine, I'll go." Before I left, I slipped a small piece of paper into the suitcase, the safe code, where I kept what they thought I could no longer hold on to: money, documents, and justice. That night, I stepped into the rain with trembling hands, but my heart was calm like water before a storm. They didn't know the storm named me would soon wipe out their lives. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave is another mark in this journey. And if this story has touched you, don't forget to hit like so it can reach even further. My name is Bertha Hale, 70 years old, a widow who lived her whole life in Columbus, Ohio. I used to be an accountant at a small clinic, the woman who knew how to stretch every dollar to raise a child, pay debts, and still save a little for old age. I wasn't rich, but I thought I had something more precious than money, a family that knew how to love. My husband, Frank, died early of heart disease. I stayed single and raised my only son, Logan, into a man. I once believed every sacrifice was worth it when I watched him graduate, get married, and buy his own house, but I was wrong. I balanced other people's books my whole life, but I couldn't balance the human heart. And it was only when the roof I built was taken from me that I realized my life wasn't over, it was just beginning a different chapter. I left the house on Eastmoor Street, where I had planted rows of yellow chrysanthemums for 18 years. The rain fell like the sky was punishing me for trusting the wrong people. The suitcase rolled over the concrete, its wheels scraping, and I, a 70-year-old woman with shaking hands, just kept walking, slow but with my back straight. No one opened a window to look at me. The neighbors probably thought, "She's just going somewhere." No one guessed that tonight I had no home to return to. I walked along the soaked street. The street lights blurred in the rain. My sweater stuck to my skin. The cold cut down to my bones. When my feet went numb, I stopped under a concrete bridge where the sound of trucks echoed like thunder. I set the suitcase down, unzipped it, pulled out the thinnest blanket, and spread it over the cement. People say the scariest part of old age is loneliness. I don't think so. The scariest part is being treated as excess by your own child. I leaned against the pillar, listened to water trickle, and checked my phone. The recording was intact. "Mom can't do anything except spend money." Logan's voice was crystal clear, with Taryn's laughter in the background. I saved the file, sent it straight to the private email I'd set up long ago, and noted the time, 7:48 p.m. That would be the first piece of evidence, small, but enough to remind me not to go soft. The wind cut through like a blade. I pulled the blanket higher and tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the suitcase falling from Logan's hands. The way he didn't look at me as a mother, but as dead weight. I remembered the years after my husband died, when I worked at the jewelry shop and cleaned at night to pay his tuition. I remembered the winter night he had a bad flu, when I stayed up, pressing warm cloths to his forehead until the fever broke. And now, that boy had grown into a man who threw me out without blinking. I didn't cry. Maybe my tears knew better and refused to fall. There was only one thing in me, cold but clear. Close to midnight, the rain still wouldn't stop. Headlights smeared yellow. Across puddles. I curled tighter. The blanket was soaked. My chest hurt not from age, but from a bare truth. I had spent my whole life raising a son who never learned how to be a decent human being. I opened my eyes at the sound of footsteps. A flashlight swept by. I tried to stand when a familiar voice rose through the rain. "Bertha." Is that you?" I froze. I hadn't heard that voice in nearly 10 years. Camille Drake, my sister, stood there in a long raincoat, hair drenched, eyes bright in the dark. She dropped the umbrella, knelt beside me without asking anything, and took my hand warm and trembling, as if she were afraid of losing me again. I didn't know what to say. Since Camille moved to Florida for real estate, we rarely talked. She had once been angry that I sold our mother's house to pay Logan's debts. Now she looked at me with pity and a hint of reproach. "My God, how long have you been here?" she asked, voice tight. "Since evening," I said softly. "Don't ask. I just want some quiet." Camille took off her coat and wrapped it around my shoulders. "No, you're not staying here another minute." She helped me up. I braced my knees, followed her, the suitcase clattering over the pavement. Her SUV was a few yards away, its interior light glowing like rescue. Camille opened the door, shoved the suitcase in, then said, "Get in, sis. This rain isn't for kind people." The heat washed over me inside the car. I shook, not from cold, but from shame. I looked at my calloused hands, the ones that built a home now covered in dirt. Camille quietly handed me a thermos. "Ginger tea with honey. Drink." I took a small sip. The sweetness warmed my throat. My tears fell for the first time that night. Camille said nothing. She turned on soft piano music and drove out of the city. "You'll come home with me to Sarasota," she said after a few minutes. "I have a vacant condo with an ocean view. We'll get there in the morning." "That's not necessary," I said. "I just need a few days, then I'll manage." "No, Bertha," she cut in, firm. "You're not going back there. I won't let you disappear like a shadow in the rain." I stayed quiet. Some sentences hit the deepest part of you and don't need debate. I watched the window. The rain began to ease, and the lights faded. It felt like leaving another life behind. Around 2 a.m., Camille pulled into a gas station. She went in for more coffee and warm towels. When she came back, she placed a new phone on my lap. "Your phone might be tracked. This is a new number." I registered it under my name. I looked at her, half moved, half wary. "Camille, what are you planning to do?" She smiled, eyes cold as steel. "Help you. Take back what's yours. And make them regret underestimating a mother." I sat still, hearing my heartbeat slow and heavy. For the first time in years, I didn't feel weak. I felt seen. The miles went by. The "Welcome to Florida" sign flashed green in the dark. I watched the last raindrops slide down the glass, each one like it was washing something dirty away. I leaned back and closed my eyes. The old house, the shattered wedding frame, Logan's flat tone, all of it faded like the end of a film. Somewhere ahead, something waited, not a chapter of defeat, but of survival. Camille tightened her grip on the wheel. "We'll reach Sarasota in the morning," she said. "I just closed a big deal, and there are a few things you need to see." "What things?" I asked. She glanced over, a slight smile. "A condo. And a chance to start over." Outside, dawn broke. The wet road caught the faint morning light. I put a hand over my heart and felt a steady rhythm. Tonight, I lost everything, but I also found the most important thing: the courage to never kneel again. The first morning after the longest storm of my life began with the smell of coffee and sunlight through the daxed curtains of a small roadside motel. Hot water pounded my back in the shower, making me shiver, painful and warm. Layers of dirt, mud, and humiliation rinsed away. I stood there a long time, listening to my heartbeat slow, steady, still beating, and that meant I was still alive, still had a chance. On the table sat a bowl of hot chicken soup Camille had bought. The scent of scallions and pepper was simple but better than any fancy dinner I'd ever had. I ate in small spoonfuls, slowly, letting the warmth slide down my throat. For months, food had no taste. That morning, I realized when a person hits bottom, a hot bowl of soup can feel like a miracle. Camille sat across from me, hair tied up messily, holding a thick file. I looked at her and saw the strength I'd forgotten I had. Camille had always been like our father, decisive, allergic to failure. Maybe that's where we differed. I endured. She pushed back. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "Enough. The mattress is firm, but clean," I said, trying a smile. She set the file on the table. "Finish eating, then sign a few things. From now on, you need a new address." I looked up. "A new address?" Camille opened the file and pulled out a color print. A white seaside building, wide balcony, pale blue curtains blowing in the wind, 2-bedroom condo, direct view of Sarasota Bay. All new furnishings, private elevator. The deed is already in your name, Bertha Hale. I froze, the spoon suspended. "Camille, what are you saying?" She calmly flipped the page. "I bought it. Paid in full, no mortgage, no lien. I just need you to sign the receipt of ownership." I choked. "Camille, you can't. You have a career, and listen to me," she said, eyes like steel. "This isn't charity. I'm giving you what you deserve. You gave up your whole life. They only took. It's time you live the rest of your life as the one in control, not the one asking permission." I said nothing. Sounds around me faded, just the fan and my heartbeat. "I transferred all the paperwork," she continued. "And one more thing." Camille pulled a cream envelope from her pocket and set it down. "Savings account. $6 million. I stared. "You said $6 million? She nodded. "Years of saving, investing, selling company shares. I held it until I knew who deserved it, and that person is you." My hand shook as I touched the envelope. That number didn't feel real. $6 million, something I'd only heard in movies. "Camille, I can't accept." "You must," she said, gentle but firm. "Because this is your armor, the thing that protects you from people willing to sell their mother for a bigger house." I turned away to hide my tears. It was all so fast last night. I was under a bridge. Now I was told I had a home, money, and a second chance. Camille pulled her chair beside me and took my hand. "Hear me, Bertha. From now on, you don't ask anyone for anything. Not anymore. You'll have a new phone number, new email, new passwords, and that condo, it's ready." By noon, we left the motel. The road to the ocean was long and bright. The salt smell drifted in, and the sky looked impossibly blue, the kind of color you only see after you've lost everything. When we stopped in front of Seabreeze Residences, I went speechless. The building was 4 stories, cream-colored, palm trees at the gate, the bay shimmering beyond. The glass doors opened, the scent of new wood and lavender filled the lobby. A young manager smiled. "Welcome, Mrs. Hale. We've prepared Unit 3B as requested." The condo flooded with sunlight. A vase of yellow tulips sat on the dining table. Everything was tasteful, not showy. White curtains, a pale gray sofa, oak shelves, and a balcony facing the bay. I stepped to the railing. The water was green-blue like glass. Small sails drifted by. The wind tossed my silver hair. I felt newly born. "Beautiful?" Camille asked behind me. "So beautiful I'm afraid to breathe." "Then take a breath and promise me one thing." "What?" "That you'll take back your dignity. No more hiding, no more silence." I turned to her. In the light, her face was both tender and relentless. I nodded. "I promise." That evening, I unpacked. In the bedside drawer, I found a new phone and a note in Camille's handwriting. The phone has recording, camera, and document scan. Use it like a shield. Don't delete anything. I smiled and flipped the phone over, labeled private use only. Camille hadn't just given me safety, she gave me a weapon. We had dinner on the balcony, lights reflecting off the water. Camille opened her laptop. I registered everything correctly, she said. Condo, accounts, insurance, all in your name. But remember this. What? Someone's gonna knock soon. I frowned. You mean Logan? She sipped wine. I don't know how they'll come, a call, a letter, or in person, but they'll come. They've smelled assets. I stared at the water. Moonlight stretched like a silver thread. I remembered the rain in Columbus, Logan's voice, Taryn's smirk. Thinking of it now didn't hurt, just felt cold and clear. What should I do? I asked. Nothing, Camille said calmly. Just watch, I'll arrange everything. When they knock, let them talk first. Save every word. The truth will reveal itself. I nodded. Camille stood. Tomorrow I'll be at the office signing the last documents. Rest. There's a doorman 24/7. No one gets close without me knowing. After she left, I stood alone on the balcony. The night breeze carried salt and steady waves. I closed my eyes and inhaled. I used to believe kindness could save everyone, that silence kept the peace. Now I understand gentleness protects no one. I was thrown into the rain, and there I learned, sometimes, to survive, you must become someone they don't dare underestimate. Out on the bay, a small boat pulled away, its lights streaking across the water like glittering fire. In that light, I made myself a promise. Starting tomorrow, no one defines me by weakness. Camille came back 2 days later in a light suit, carrying a thick leather-bound file. She set it on the table and said straight out, "It's time to meet someone important. Her name is Amelia Park, an elder rights attorney. If Logan or Taryn try anything, Amelia will be your wall." A few hours later, Amelia arrived. Korean-American, early 40s, small frame, eyes sharp as a blade. Hair in a bun, cream blouse, black briefcase. She skipped small talk and opened with a line that made me sit up. "Mrs. Hale, first we separate everything from their reach." Camille nodded beside me. I knew this wasn't just a chat, it was the start of a lawful counter-strategy. Amelia opened her laptop and laid it out clearly. "We'll set up a living trust. Your assets, the condo, and $6 million go into the trust. You remain in control, but if anything happens, authority passes to your chosen successor without court, and no one can sue to seize it." Every word sounded like steel fencing. Camille added, "I'll be the backup successor, only to support. No one else besides me and Amelia knows the structure." I thought of Logan once, the little boy who held my hand, now circling to grab everything. I asked quietly, "What about the condo?" "The deed is already in my name, but can they sue?" Amelia smiled slightly. "They can try. Once the trust is live, the condo belongs to the entity. 10 lawyers couldn't touch it." I fell silent. Relief mixed with grief. I never imagined I'd need the law to stand against my own child. 3 days later, I signed dozens of papers. My name appeared everywhere, my handwriting shaky but firm. The condo deed was updated. The $6 million moved into the living trust under Bertha M. Hale Living Trust. Amelia clicked the last confirmation. "From now on, you're safe. No one can strip these assets from you, even if they try to claim you lack capacity." Those 6 words, "strip these assets from you," tightened my chest. That was exactly what Logan and Taryn were plotting. After signing, we went to the bank. Amelia set up 3-factor authentication, biometrics, a private email code, and a verified video call before any change. The banker, a middle-aged woman, looked at me with sympathy and respect. "Not many at your age prepare this well," she said. I smiled. "I used to trust too much, now I'm just careful." That night, Camille said, "We need another set of eyes on Logan and Taryn." "You mean a private investigator?" she answered. "Not to invade privacy, but to protect you. If they file something, spread lies, or forge documents, we'll know first." I sat with it. Part of me still hated that. My life had become a case file. But thinking of Taryn's sneers and Logan's threats to control my accounts, I said, do it. Camille hired Lance Moran, a retired judicial officer turned PI. In Tampa. Quiet, silver-haired, solid, he seemed to know exactly the type we were dealing with. Leave it to me, Lance said. I've seen dozens of cases kids tricking parents into signing transfers, but you're different. You're clear-minded and protected. 2 days later, he sent Camille photos and a first report. Logan had contacted an out-of-state law office about a power of attorney. Taryn was posting vague lines online like, "When the elderly won't be reasonable, you help them get organized." I read it all without anger, only clarity. Love doesn't vanish. It turns into a lesson. Amelia told me to gather everything. Photos of bruises from being shoved, Taryn's threatening texts, and the recording of Logan throwing me out. The more detail, the better, she said. We'll use it if needed. I did, organizing into folders, numbering them, saving to a drive and sending copies to Camille. Nothing left to hide, only the truth. We upgraded the condo's security. A smart doorbell camera, a hidden recorder in the living room, window sensors. The building manager, Hector Ruiz, a retired cop with a deep voice and tan skin, said, "You're safe here. I'm on the floor below. 2 rings on the bell, and I'll be here." Every morning I saw him patrolling the halls, giving a small nod. No speech is needed. That was enough to steady me. I started learning things I never thought I'd need, the difference between legitimate healthcare proxies and disguised guardianship. Amelia taught me to read contracts line by line, pointing to bait phrases, temporary assistance clause, shared management. They sound harmless, she said, but together they erase your voice. I noted everything in a notebook, careful letters like, when I did accounting. Each night I reread it, a small ritual reminding me, knowledge is the armor of self-respect. One morning, I cleared my desk, opened the notebook, and wrote 3 big words in blue ink. Home, name, rights. 3 simple words, but they were everything I had lost and was now reclaiming. Home, not just a roof, but a place where I'm respected. Name, not for others to write on papers they want signed. Rights not begged or borrowed, but held fast with knowledge and proof. I closed the notebook and looked around the condo. Sunlight poured through clear glass, gleaming on the floor. No mud, no rain, only the smell of salt and chamomile tea I'd just brewed. I stepped onto the balcony. The breeze lifted my silver hair. Camille was right. This wasn't about feelings anymore. It was a fight for dignity and the right to live free. I set my hand on the railing and watched the bay shimmer. A quiet sentence rose inside me, slow but certain. No one will take what belongs to me again. I knew their first silence wouldn't last. People used to living off others can't stand being cut off, especially when their source suddenly disappears. 2 weeks after Camille and Amelia finished the legal work, Logan showed up. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. On the camera, my son's face more drawn, forced smile, holding a pizza box. Next to him, Taryn in dark glasses, hair in a bun, clutching sunflowers. "Mom," Logan said through the doorbell mic, voice soft, "we just wanted to stop by." "I miss you." I watched them on the screen. The face I'd kissed goodnight 1,000 times now, calculating, evasive, scouting. I didn't open the door. "Thank you," I said calmly into the mic. "I'm not up for visitors today. Leave the pizza at the door. I'll get it later." Taryn cut in, syrupy. "Oh, don't misunderstand. We just want dinner with you, to talk. It's been a while. Seafood pizza, the kind you like." On the screen, I saw her glance around, pausing a few seconds on the doorbell camera. I smiled slightly and whispered, "Thanks, dear. I'm full." I muted the mic and sat on the couch. Outside, they lingered a few minutes, talking too low for me to hear, then left. But I knew the game wasn't over. Hours later, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Glad to see you're safe. Sending a few old memories. Logan and Taryn attached were photos. Logan's 8th birthday, his college graduation, the wedding pictures only I owned the originals of. I looked at those faces, me beaming, Logan arm around my shoulder, Taryn tight-lipped. Memories surged, stabbing a little, but that pain no longer pulled me under. I knew these weren't for nostalgia, they were probes to see if I'd soften and reopen the door they'd slammed. I didn't reply. I saved everything, took screenshots and filed them under Contact Logan Taryn. Part of me trembled with bitterness, but the rest of me was ice. I wasn't reminiscing, I was building a case. 2 days later, they came back. This time, they rang the bell non-stop, their voices blaring through the intercom. "Mom, I just want to talk. At your age, you need someone to help organize paperwork in case." Logan hesitated. "In case something unexpected happens." I switched on the mic, my voice steady. "The only unexpected thing that ever happened, son, was when I was thrown out of my house in the rain. I've handled everything myself since that day. Now I'm strong enough to handle the rest." They went silent for a few seconds, then left. I watched on the camera until their car cleared the condo gate. A breeze from the bay lifted the curtains. I drew a deep breath. I didn't feel victorious, only that I was keeping my own rhythm, something many people my age can't do after being betrayed. The next day, they tried a different approach. A young man in a blue shirt with a name badge reading Senior Life Advisor knocked on my door. He smiled brightly, holding a glossy packet. "Hello, Mrs. Hale," he said. "We're conducting a survey about retirement planning and elder support services. You were referred by a family member," I cut in. "Which family member?" He gave an awkward smile. "Oh, I'm not allowed to disclose that, but they said you might need advice on financial power of attorney." I gave a thin smile. "Thank you. I'm not signing anything, and I have my own attorney." He tried one more line. "It's just a free consultation." I stepped back, still calm. "Then leave the brochure at the door." "Thank you." When he walked away, I captured his license plate with the hallway camera. 10 minutes later, I sent the photo and a description to Amelia with a note. "They're starting to use strangers." That evening, Amelia called back, her voice composed but firm. "I saw it. He's not a real advisor, he works for a shady outfit previously investigated for scamming seniors. I'll send a warning to the licensing board. They won't dare come near you again." I hung up and looked out the window. The sea was calm, moonlight silvered the surface. A feeling rose in me, strange and deep. I wasn't prey anymore, I was casting a net. But the game didn't stop. 3 days later, the bank sent an alert. Someone had tried to change the mailing address for my statements. Fortunately, the 3-layer security kicked in. A bank employee called me on video to verify. I saw the line, "Request initiated from Columbus OH," and my chest tightened. I told her, "I didn't submit that request. Keep everything as is and enable alerts for any changes." She nodded, worried. "We'll lock online functions for 24 hours to audit the access source." I ended the call and immediately sent screenshots to Amelia and Camille. Half an hour later, Camille texted back, "Good. The system works. Let them expose themselves." I set the phone down, exhaled, then opened the small safe under my desk. Each document, trust papers, bank contract copies, updated will was neatly organized in plastic sleeves. I lifted the safe and felt its real weight, not just metal and paper but tangible peace of mind. I split every category into 2 sets, one for Camille, one for Amelia. Nothing secret anymore, only evidence, backed up. That evening, I sat at the dining table and opened my notebook. Camille FaceTimed me and said, "I just had an idea. You should practice a script for when they try to push you to sign. They can spoof calls or impersonate legal staff." "The best method is strategic silence," I asked. "Strategic silence?" She nodded. "Right. It means when they try to trap you, you only respond with neutral lines, no confirming, no denying, just repeat, "I will check with my attorney. Everything else record it." I wrote that sentence in red, then drew a line beneath it and added, "Don't let emotion take the lead." That night, I practiced alone. Pretending a caller was pressing me, I kept my tone even. When I looked back in the mirror, I saw a different woman, still me, but with a new light in her eyes. Self-possession. The next day, I took flowers onto the balcony. Florida's sun glowed soft. The bay breeze carried salt. I arranged the sunflowers Taryn once sent, not for her, but for me. Each bright bloom felt like a symbol of survival, of not bending. When Hector Ruiz, the guard, walked by, he paused to greet me. "Doing okay, Mrs. Hale?" I smiled. "Better than ever." Night fell. I checked the cameras again. Everything was quiet. No strange footsteps, no shadows in the hall. I brewed chamomile tea, opened my laptop, and looked at the neatly arranged folders. Proof, Logan Taryn. Bank logs, voice records, trust, documents. I set my hand on the mouse, then stopped. No need to open them. I knew. Everything I needed was already there, and for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't just surviving. I was building a complete record of the truth. Outside, waves lapped softly. I closed my eyes and listened to my heart, slow and steady. Inside, I wasn't trembling anymore. There was only a quiet conviction, shining like a small lamp in a condo by Sarasota Bay. Justice doesn't come to the weak, it comes to those who prepare. Thursday morning. The Sarasota sky was an impossible blue. The sea was flat as glass, rippling silver. I had just finished brewing tea when the doorbell rang. On the camera screen, Logan appeared, face looking more pleasant than usual. Next to him, Taryn pressed a smile, holding a thick file neatly clipped in a plastic folder. In the sun, the title glinted, Family Wellness and Property Coordination Program. I wasn't surprised. I'd been waiting for this day. I turned on the mic and said quietly, "Hello, you two. If you're visiting, fine. But I'll receive you in the living room, where there's a camera." Logan stiffened, then forced a smile. "Of course, Mom." "I just want to talk," Taryn chimed in. "We're worried about you. You've been living alone and have a lot of financial paperwork. We just want to help make it less complicated." I unlocked the door and let them in. The condo was cool and bright, sunlight flashing on the wood floor. I sat on the sofa, keeping the file within the doorbell camera's view, right where Hector Ruiz once said, "Every frame is stored for 48 hours. Logan sat opposite, voice light as air. "This is a support packet for older family members, so we can handle things for you when you're tired or need a break. You just need to sign in a few places." I took it and flipped through. Tiny type, wording that sounded kind. Family care and asset coordination, temporary administrative support, authorization to act on behalf. All. Harmless if I hadn't learned from Amelia how to legalize a takeover. I looked at Logan and asked softly, "Who drafted this?" "It's a standard template, Mom. A friend at a law office gave it to me." "Which friend?" Logan faltered. "Someone named Carr. He works in Columbus." That name brought back Taryn's earlier phone line. "Attorney Carr said if Mom won't agree, we can still apply for guardianship." I smiled and set the file on the tea table. "All right. Thank you both. I'll read it carefully." Taryn scooted closer, voice melting like slow candy. "Mom, it's just a formality. If you sign now, it'll be easier for us. And you'll feel secure." I stayed quiet for a few beats, then answered evenly, "Do you think I still sign where I'm told without reading?" Logan held his breath. The smile froze. I knew he was calculating. Just as the air began to clot, the doorbell rang again. I stood and pressed the release. Amelia Park walked, in neat gray suit, hair in a bun, a red file in hand. "Sorry to drop in," she said, voice gentle but cool. "Mrs. Hale, I brought the comparison we discussed yesterday." Logan and Taryn spun around, startled. I said evenly, "Oh, this is my attorney. She reviews everything for me, even family papers." Taryn's lips trembled, then she pasted on a smile. "Oh, an attorney? That's great. Mom is very careful." Amelia laid the file on the table, opened her laptop, and spoke in a professor's even tone. "Excellent. Let's go through this. I just compared the content in the Family Wellness and Property Coordination packet you sent, Logan, with the draft email from Attorney Carr's office." She put the highlights on screen. "Here, Clause 4B says temporary coordination for healthcare and finance, but the original email reads permanent power of attorney and property control. That means full and permanent authority." The room dropped into an icy silence. Taryn blinked rapidly, then burst into tears. "No, that's not what we meant. I just want to help Mom." Logan clenched his jaw, voice dropping. "You don't understand." Amelia cut him off without changing expression. "Logan, you can say that in court if you like. But let me be clear. This shows intent to strip an elder's legal rights, disguised as a care contract. I've sent this red line to the State Elder Protection Office. And everything said here is recorded. Correct, Mrs. Hale?" I nodded. "Yes, and audio too." Taryn stopped crying. Hatred flashed in her eyes before she dropped back into helpless mode. Logan lowered his head, hands knotted. "I saw it plainly. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a failed scheme." I stood, took the packet back from the table. "You know," I said, calmer than I expected, "I've learned one thing. When people can't control you with feelings, they'll try with a signature." I looked straight at Logan, then tore the packet in half. The rip snapped loud in the silent room. Don't mistake silence for weakness. I tore the contract and felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. "Which detail made you feel the most satisfied? The tear, the line, or Ruiz appearing to file a report? Leave me one line, I'll read it with you." Logan flushed and started to speak when Hector Ruiz, the building guard, appeared at the door. He stepped in, stern but courteous. "Excuse me," Mrs. Hale asked me to assist. "I need to remind you that all residents have the right to refuse visitors. I'll be filing an incident report for today, with lobby camera footage attached." Taryn shot to her feet, wiped her tears, and tugged Logan's arm. "Let's go, Logan, it's not worth it." He looked at me, anger and shame mixed in his eyes. "You've changed, Mom," I answered, soft as breath. "No, I just woke up." They walked out, Ruiz following, noting the time they left the past building. I listened to the door click shut, and only the sea breeze outside the balcony remained. Amelia smiled slightly. "Perfect. I have enough. They won't try that again anytime soon." I poured her tea. "Thank you, Amelia. Today I wasn't just protected. I saw the truth." She sipped, looking at me kindly. "You won't need me forever, Mrs. Hale. You already know how to protect yourself." After she left, I texted Camille one simple line. The bait was taken. A smiley popped up a few minutes later. "Good. Keep everything as is. I'll handle the rest." That night, I went to bed early. Not because I was tired, but because I was at peace. It felt like I'd finally loosened the rope that had gripped my throat for years. In my sleep, I saw the sea outside, flat and calm, the waves lapping like the steady breathing of someone who just made it through a storm. The next morning, I opened the door for the mail as usual. The mailbox sat by the stairs. Hector had just cleared the dry leaves around it. Inside, besides the utilities, there was a white envelope. No return address. Sealed tight. I opened it. Inside was a fresh white orchid, its scent gentle but cold, no note. I looked at the flower, and my heart dipped. Taryn once gave me white orchids on Logan's birthday, calling them the flower of loyalty and purity. Now it lay silent in an envelope like a coded message, maybe reconciliation, maybe a warning. I closed the envelope and placed the orchid in a glass vase on the table. I didn't shake. I wasn't afraid. I just smiled faintly and told myself, if they change tactics, I'll change the game. Sunlight poured into the room, washing over the photo of me and Frank on the shelf. I looked in the mirror and saw a silver-haired woman with bright eyes and a slight curve to her mouth. No trace of the woman thrown out in the rain that night. Only someone waiting for the day the whole truth would be revealed. I still remember that morning, Sarasota, warm and peaceful, like nothing bad could get in. I had just poured coffee and turned on the radio when a knock came. Not Hector Ruiz, not Camille, and not Amelia. It was a certified courier. "Mrs. Hale?" the man asked, handing me a thick envelope sealed with a court stamp. I signed, sat at the table, and slowly opened the brown paper. Inside were 6 typed pages, the bold title, "Petition for Adult Guardianship, Application for Court Review." I read line by line, and the farther I read, the more absurd it became. Logan and Taryn, asked the court to appoint a guardian for me due to signs of incapacity, susceptibility to influence, and inability to manage assets. I laughed. The sound cracked through the quiet room, dry but real. Me, the one who managed a clinic budget for 15 years, reconciled thousands of ledger lines without a single error, now labeled confused and lacking awareness. I set the pages down and drew a deep breath. Not angry, just tired. Tired of how far people will twist reality when it gets them what they want. By noon, Camille arrived. She saw the packet, frowned, read carefully, then gave a cool smile. "All right," she said evenly. "If they want to go legal, we'll play by the rules. But this time, you won't just defend." "What do you mean?" "I'm taking you to a forensic psychologist, someone who evaluates cognitive capacity. We'll get an independent assessment recognized by the court. If they claim you lack capacity, this will be a legal slap in their face." I looked at my sister and saw that familiar light, the light of someone who never backs down. "Okay," I said softly. "I'll go." 2 days later, I went to the Sarasota Neuro Assessment Center, a small white building by the shore. The clinic was quiet, hung with landscape prints. The doctor, Helen Graves, was around 50, deep-voiced, patient. She asked hundreds of questions: dates, numbers, logic puzzles, childhood memories, math skills. I answered each one, sometimes with a wry smile. "If I get one wrong, doctor, tell me. I can recalculate." She laughed. "I don't think you'll need to." The assessment lasted nearly 2 hours. As I left, Dr. Graves squeezed my hand and said gently, "Mrs. Hale, your memory and cognition are very strong. I'll send the results to your attorney today. Don't worry, the truth is on your side." I thanked her and stepped outside. The sea breeze carried salt and freedom. I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. That night, Amelia received the results and immediately filed a formal response packet. It included my cognitive capacity certification with a perfect score, proof of the lawful living trust, video from the earlier confrontation, plus the red line exposing the takeover attempt, a building incident report for disruptive behavior. The court hadn't accepted the petition yet, but our response had planted a flag, meaning any complaint involving me would require medical verification before consideration. A true paper wall. When Amelia explained it, I found myself laughing. I crunched numbers my whole life, never thought my son would get beaten by paperwork. She smiled. "Justice isn't fast, but it knows how to walk in the right direction, Mrs. Hale. I thought we'd have a lull, but darkness doesn't retreat that easily." A week later, Lance, the private investigator, sent an urgent email. Found a mobile notary scheduled to sign papers in the parking lot of a hotel near Logan's place. They say it's for a mental status confirmation. I almost dropped my phone. They wanted to forge a capacity evaluation, the first step to push guardianship. Camille called me immediately. "Don't leave the condo. I'll coordinate with Amelia. From now on, any meeting or signature related to you must be moved to the law office. Not a single document is to Breckingham have happened. It'd be signed elsewhere." I nodded, my heart sinking and hardening at once. All those years I thought only strangers could betray you. I never imagined someone who called me Mom would hire a parking lot notary to manufacture fake evidence. That night, near 1 a.m., the building's fire alarm shrieked. Red lights flashed, speakers boomed down the hall. I threw on a robe and opened the door. Hector Ruiz was already there, moving fast. "No actual smoke, Mrs. Hale," he said. "Could be a false alarm." It triggered on the floor below. I looked over the railing, and at that moment, my hallway camera pinged. Motion detected. A figure in a gray jacket appeared at the main entrance, back to the camera, hood up. I zoomed in the jacket, the tall, lean frame. It was Logan. I said nothing. I saved the video and sent it straight to Amelia and Lance. Lance messaged back in under 5 minutes. "I'll contact the local police. This isn't a family matter anymore." I closed the door, leaned against the wall, and breathed deep. No fear, only clarity like never before. My son had crossed the line. I understood then this wouldn't end with tears or remorse. Only the law could close this loop. The next morning, Amelia arrived early with new documents. "I've sent an emergency notice to the court office. If they still try to file, we have grounds to countersue for harassment and defamation." She looked at me, her voice softer. "But I need you to prepare for something else, the thing you said you wanted." I knew what she meant. I took out my notebook where I'd written 3 words. "Home, name, rights." "I've decided," I said slowly. "If I win, I don't just want to keep what's mine. I want to use the rest to protect others." Camille, sitting beside me, squeezed my hand. "You're really going to start a foundation?" "Yes, a legacy to protect elders from financial abuse by their own families. It won't be huge, but enough so someone has a place to go when they're pushed to sign. Like I was." Amelia nodded, her eyes softening. "I'll help draft it. We'll call it the Hale Foundation for Elder Justice." I smiled. The bay outside sparkled. Sunlight poured through the frame, brightening the room another shade. Strange how, right in the middle of what felt like a storm, I felt calmer than ever. That evening, I sat at the desk, opened my laptop, and wrote the first lines of the foundation draft. The Hale Foundation was born from a rainstorm when a mother was thrown out by her own child. It exists to remind us that kindness needs no permission and justice does not wait for age. I typed each word slow and sure. Every period felt like a small declaration that I still controlled my life. When I finished, I closed the laptop, poured tea, and looked out at the sea. The sky was deep purple, gulls tilted homeward. I saw myself in them also heading back, but this time toward freedom. I whispered to myself, "If anyone ever fears they're too old to start over, let me be the proof they're wrong." People say 70 is the time to rest, travel, read, and reflect. As for me, after the longest storm of my life, I began to rewrite the future, not just for myself, but for those like me. On the first Monday morning after the court temporarily suspended the guardianship file, Amelia arrived carrying a charter over 200 pages thick. On the cover, the foundation's name was printed in elegant italic serif, Second Morning Foundation. Below it was the tagline I had handwritten the night before. "Because every woman deserves a second Monday where dawn is no longer shaded by fear," Amelia said. "That name is lovely, Bertha. It sounds both steady and warm." I smiled lightly. "Because I lived a first morning in fear." Now I want others to have a second morning where they can stand up straight. The foundation's structure was drafted by Amelia and Camille down to the smallest detail. The Sarasota condo and the entire sum of $6 million were bound irrevocably in the bylaws. That means even if I die, get sued, or am coerced, no one can transfer, collateralize, or dissolve the foundation without unanimous consent of the board. That board has 5 members, each name carrying a story. Dr. Lila Wong, a clinical psychologist once forced by family to retire early and hand over her house to a grandchild. Reverend James Porter, who organized a support group for seniors whose children seized their pensions. Principal Nora Gates, a widow who fought to reclaim her accounts after a son-in-law tricked her into signing over power of attorney. Evan Pike, a retired chief accountant and my former colleague at the old clinic, someone whose every number I trust. And finally Camille, my sister, who breathes soul into every plan. I keep only the role of founder and figurehead. I have no unilateral decision-making power, and do not hold the account keys. All expenditures must be approved by at least 3 of 5 votes, with signatures recorded, archived, and disclosed transparently. Amelia said, "This way you'll never again be threatened with loss of capacity to manage. Not even I can intervene alone." I nodded, looking at the file, feeling my heart grow light. "Exactly," I said. "I've lived long enough to know power is only safe when it's shared." 1 month later, Second Morning Foundation officially launched. On opening day, Sarasota's sky was a clear blue, wind off the bay billowing the sign hung over the old building the foundation rented for offices. I wore a white shirt, pinned on a silver badge engraved SMF, and stepped onto a small platform. In front of me weren't crowds of reporters, but 12 older women, the first participants in the program. I didn't give a long speech. I said exactly 2 sentences. "We have been silent too long. From today on, actions will speak for us." Applause started tentative, then grew stronger, steadier. In that moment, I knew I had chosen the right road. Under Amelia's guidance, the foundation launched its first campaign, the New Monday program. Every Monday, at the little Bayside office, we held legal workshops for seniors teaching how to read contracts, recognize disguised power of attorney scams, and store assets safely. At noon, volunteers prepared a community meal, chicken soup, toast, and fresh fruit. Every table had someone to talk with, to share their story. In the afternoon, Dr. Lila led group counseling sessions where women financially abused by relatives could speak, cry, and begin to heal. One lady named Dorothy, over 80, hands trembling but voice firm, said, "Yesterday I said no to my son for the first time. I'm still scared, but I said it." The room applauded. I looked at her and saw myself there, the woman who once stayed quiet to keep the peace until she was backed into a corner. The local paper, the Sarasota Daily Herald, ran the first story about the foundation with the headline, "A 70-year-old widow turns pain into justice. Second Morning Foundation rises to protect seniors from abuse." The article spread quickly. A week later, regional stations started calling. They wanted to interview me, take pictures, film the condo where I was thrown out and which had now become a symbol of independence. I declined most of them. "I didn't want to be a famous victim," I told Amelia. "Let actions speak. I don't need a lens. I need results." She nodded. "So you're still teaching me, Bertha." While everyone was busy with the new project, I kept a small habit planting lavender on the balcony. Soft purple rose, small but fragrant, grew evenly in clay pots. I tended each plant, watered them every morning, and never forgot to whisper, "Calm is armor." Whenever the wind blew, the scent drifted into the home, and Welly reminded me of my husband Frank, who used to say, "All you need is to learn to stand firm, and the world will have to move around you." Now I understood. Calm is not weakness. It's a form of strength, the strength of someone who has gone through a storm without letting the wind carry off her soul. 2 weeks passed since the article, and Logan was silent. No calls, no texts, no lawsuits. A strange quiet. Amelia said, "Quiet isn't an ending, Bertha. It's when they're planning." Camille put it shorter, with a wry edge. "Time for them to smell the paperwork." I knew what my sister meant. Logan isn't the type to accept defeat. After the failure of the care papers, he was surely plotting something else. But this time, I wasn't afraid. Each time I thought of it, I just breathed deep, listened to the bay's waves, and let the lavender soothe my heart. One afternoon, while I was organizing foundation files, Nora, the principal on our board, came in. "Mrs. Hale," she said, "next week a reporter from Orlando wants to write a long piece. They say your story helped many women realize they're being exploited without knowing it." I looked up and smiled softly. If that piece helps one person speak up, then let them write. Nora nodded, eyes glistening. "You really are an inspiration." I shook my head. "No, I'm just someone who refuses to be silent one more time." Night fell, and I stepped onto the balcony, looking over Sarasota Bay under the moon. From the floor below, Hector Ruiz was on his rounds and looked up to wave. I raised my hand in return. Inside, the Foundation's office lights were still on Camille and Evan finishing the first expense report. Everything small but transparent, clean, with no gaps. I poured tea, sat down, and stared into the distance. I remembered the first time Logan threw my suitcase down the steps, the rain lashing my face, the glass shattering underfoot. Now, thinking back, it felt like a past life. I had walked out of that rain not just to live, but to build a place where those still standing in the rain could find light. The next morning, Camille arrived early and set a new file on the table. "This is the expansion plan," she said. "Florida is just the start. If things go well, we'll open branches in 3 other states. But first, be ready. Logan will react." I smiled slightly. "What do you think he'll do?" "He might file a new petition or spread things online. Either way, it'll be noisy. But now you have a foundation, a board, and the law. And most importantly, you have the true story. No one can twist the truth." I nodded. From the window, morning light slipped through the curtains and fell across the thick file, making the words "Second Morning Foundation" glow like they were gilded. I spoke softly, almost a whisper. "A second Monday, and I'm still here, ready." I once thought that after establishing the Second Morning Foundation, the battle was over. But then, like a quiet tide, the past rose again, not with accusations, but with forged papers. One morning, Amelia walked into the office with a face like steel. She set a thin packet on the table, the corner stamped with the Sarasota County seal. "Take a look at this," she said. I opened it. The first page read, "Minutes of Board Meeting, Second Morning Foundation." It claimed that I, along with the board members, had approved transferring financial control of the foundation to a temporary advisor, Logan Hale. I looked down at the signature line, my signature. Clear, neat, with the loop of the B and H. If I didn't know myself, I'd have believed it. "My word," I murmured. "They dare forge it to this extent?" Amelia nodded. "Not only that, they attached a record of a foundation meeting at a downtown cafe with a blurry photo of you at a table." I looked at the photo. It was me, or rather, a cropped old photo of me from last year pasted into another scene. I wasn't angry. I only felt that familiar, bitter ache rise. They still think I'm as easy to deceive as before. Amelia immediately sent copies to a handwriting expert and a digital metadata lab. The results came back in just 2 days, so fast I figured she had pushed the lab hard. The report stated clearly, the handwriting was digitally cloned from an old bank check of mine, enlarged 117%, and tilted 4 degrees to fake a handwritten effect. The PDF metadata showed the file was created 12 days after the date printed on the document and edited 3 times on the same device, a laptop registered to Taryn Hale. Most importantly, the cafe where they claimed the board meeting took place. Blue Coral Cafe had been closed for renovations since last month, with a temporary closure notice confirmed by the Food Safety Board. I read that and couldn't help smiling. So clumsy? Amelia shrugged. When greed outpaces intelligence, people leave tracks. The next day, we filed a motion to dismiss and counter for fraud and perjury, with the county court asking to throw out the documents and open an investigation into fraud and perjury before authorities. As Amelia presented to the clerk, I stood behind her, watching every movement efficient, decisive, like a conductor leading a symphony of righteousness. "This time," she said as we stepped out of the courthouse, "we're not on defense anymore. We're on offense." And just as she predicted, because Second Morning is a senior support nonprofit, the case immediately drew the attention of the Sarasota County prosecutor. A week later, I received a call. "Mrs. Hale, this is Assistant District Attorney Miller. Our office will review your file. Forging signatures involving a nonprofit serving seniors can be criminally prosecuted. We need full cooperation." I answered simply. "I've been ready since the day they threw me out of the house." While Amelia and Camille worked with the prosecutor, I kept my daily rhythm. Watering lavender in the morning, walking the bay in the afternoon, sometimes stopping to watch sunlight scatter on the water. Not to forget, but to keep my heart clear. One day, Camille teased, "You're not scared?" "They're about to face a criminal investigation," I answered, half joking and half true. "Scared? If you've ever slept under a bridge in a February rain, there's nothing left to fear." She shook her head and said softly, "You're steel tempered by tears." 3 weeks later, a preliminary hearing opened at the county court. I, Amelia, Camille, and the board's counsel were present. Logan and Taryn sat on the other side, well-dressed, feigning calm. I looked at them without hatred, only the unbridgeable distance between a mother and her child. The judge was Margaret Rowe, over 60, known for tough rulings in elder abuse cases. At the outset, she said, "I've read both sides' filings. Today I want to hear arguments." Amelia rose, voice low and sure. "Your Honor, the plaintiff fabricated a foundation meeting, forged a signature, and misrepresented the location. We have expert handwriting analysis, technical metadata, and the cafe owner's confirmation. We ask the court to dismiss all requests and refer the file to the county prosecutor." Across the aisle, Logan's attorney, a salt-and-pepper-haired man, stood, trying to stay composed. "Your Honor, this was merely a technical misunderstanding. My clients believed their mother was no longer capable of running the foundation, and their actions were to protect family assets." The judge cut in immediately. "Then let me ask, in your previous filing, didn't you state that Mrs. Hale was sufficiently lucid to enter financial contracts, correct?" The lawyer froze, shuffled papers, and stammered, "Yes, because then you wanted to show she had capacity to bear responsibility," Judge Rowe said crisply. "And now, to seize control of the foundation, you claim she lacks capacity. The arguments are contradictory. I do not accept them." Logan's side fell silent. Taryn bowed her head, shoulders trembling. After argument, the judge ruled, "The court dismisses the plaintiff's requests in full and refers the file to the county prosecutor for investigation into document forgery, fraud, and perjury." The gavel landed hard and dry, like a period ending a stormy sentence. I closed my eyes for a second. No gloating, no joy, just a deep relief, as if the last patch of ground under my feet had been repaired. Amelia turned to me and whispered, "You won," I replied. "No one wins in this, Amelia. We only reclaim what should have been ours." That afternoon, Camille and I walked along Sarasota Bay. Ripples winked, The wind carried salt and the scent of lavender from my balcony. Camille asked, "Are you going to sue them back? With this evidence, you could claim damages for defamation, emotional distress, everything." I stopped, looking out toward the setting sun. "No, Camille, no need. My job isn't revenge. My job is restoring boundaries. When people stand in the right place, justice finds its way." She was quiet for a while, then nodded, eyes a little red. "You always choose to forgive at the right time, but you never forget." I smiled. Not forgetting is how I forgive without losing myself. That night, I went home and switched on the balcony light. The bay breeze moved through the lavender, its fragrance drifting like smoke. I added a few fresh sprigs to a glass vase, poured tea, and sat. In the quiet, I heard waves and insects and sensed something simple. My life had turned a page. No longer the woman thrown into the rain. No longer the one begging for a place in her own home. I am Bertha Hale, who turned pain into a foundation for justice and tears into bylaws that protect others. I looked up at city lights reflected on the water and said softly, as if to myself, "That's enough. From now on, any wave that comes is only to wash clean, not to sweep me away." 3 days after the hearing, I received a short text from Logan. "Mom, I want to see you. Just dinner, no paperwork. I'm sorry." I read the line again and again, not angry, not moved, only a vague feeling rising between real and staged. I could no longer tell. Camille saw me staring at the phone too long and asked, "Are you going?" I nodded slightly. "I'll go. Not to forgive, but to end it properly." Amelia instructed me carefully. "If you go, bring the notarized addendum, the bylaw supplement. I've prepared it. If anything happens, you just set it on the table." I smiled. "You know I won't miss the chance to close the last door." Friday night, I went to the Seaside Grill, the place Logan took me for his 17th birthday. Back then, he ordered steak, and I had salad because I was afraid of the cost. Now, I returned not as a penny-pinching mother, but as someone who knows the price of trust. Logan waited in the lobby, white shirt, neat hair, eyes mixing nerves and forced warmth. Taryn sat inside, pale lipstick, wearing the pearl necklace I once gave her. "Hi, Mom," Logan said with a slight bow. "Hello, you two," I answered evenly. The server led us to a table by the window. Warm yellow light fell across the polished wood, reflecting Taryn's practiced smile. I set my bag on the chair. Inside was the notarized envelope, a thin sheet heavy enough to end whatever remained. Dinner began with stiff small talk. Taryn asked about my health, the lavender on the balcony, the article about the foundation she happened to read. I responded briefly, politely, nothing more, nothing less. Logan talked more. He said the company was struggling, that the Columbus house needed a roof repair, that rising interest rates made everything stifling. I listened, sipping tea in silence. The table felt like a stage where tired actors still recited old lines. "I miss you, Mom. I worry about you. I just want you to feel secure." But I'd heard those lines in the rain beside a drenched suitcase. Now I felt nothing but composure. Mid-meal, Logan folded his hands and his voice rasped. "Mom, I know I was wrong. Taryn knows it too. But, Mom, do you really not want to revisit a few decisions? I mean, the legacy?" Taryn lowered her head and added, voice shaky yet controlled, "We don't want money. It's just, it would make more sense if you adjusted a bit. At least so family still has a name in it, you understand." I looked at them. No blame, no pity. Only the clarity that they still didn't grasp the most important thing. Once certain things are lost, money can't buy them back. I opened my bag and took out the cream envelope with the red notary seal. Set it lightly on the table. "This is an addendum," I said, "an official supplement to Second Morning Foundation's bylaws." Logan frowned. "What is it, Mom?" "This paper confirms that the Sarasota condo and the entire $6 million, my original assets, are permanently locked into the foundation. No one, including me, can withdraw or transfer them." Taryn turned pale. "Mom, you mean—" I nodded. "I'm only leaving my fingerprint in how it's used. The beneficiaries will be 3 sub-programs: scholarships for single women over 60, a fund for elder abuse victims, and community medical aid for low-income seniors." A hush fell over the table. Only the faint clink of silverware remained out of place. Taryn tried to smile, but it cracked like a thin pane. "Beautiful, Mom," she whispered, voice tight. Logan's eyes fixed on the envelope, lips pressed like he was swallowing something bitter. I stopped looking at them. I looked through the window. Across the street, the lighthouse cast. Long, glittering bands of light, lovely but cold. "You know," I said slowly, "I didn't do this to cut you off. I chose peace. I've lived long enough to know love can't survive when it's locked inside numbers." No one answered, only Logan's heavy breathing. I saw his chest rise and fall, Taryn's hand on his arm as if to hold back anger. I smiled, stood, and slid my chair back gently. "Thank you for dinner. I truly hope you two find something more important than money." Then I picked up my bag and turned away. No hug, no goodbye. Behind me, I heard a chair scrape and breath tightening, held in, but I didn't look back. Through the door, the sea wind rushed in, salty, cold, and real. I pulled my coat close, inhaled deeply, and felt my heart lighten as if I had slipped off the final binding rope. That night, I got home close to 10. The condo was quiet, carrying only the faint scent of lavender. I hung my coat, made tea, and looked out at the balcony. For the decade, first time in years, I didn't lock the door twice. Not because I forgot, but because there was nothing left to fear. I knew that out there Logan might be angry, hurt, or recalculating. But it no longer mattered. I no longer belonged to their whirlpool. I had chosen to stand outside it, in the light I built for myself. The next morning, while I was watering the plants, my phone rang. Amelia Park's name lit up on the screen. "Good morning, Mrs. Hale." Her voice was full of energy. "I have news. The prosecutor's office just notified us. The forged file case we submitted, the fake signature, and fake meeting has been moved to criminal prosecution. Logan and Taryn are officially under investigation." I was quiet for a few seconds, my hand still holding the watering can, drops falling onto the lavender pot, glittering in the early sun. "I understand," I said softly. "They're about to relearn the lesson I had to learn, that every signature and every word has a blessed price." Amelia asked, "Do you want to appear before the press? A lot of people care about your story now." I smiled. "No, Amelia. I just want peace. Let justice do its part, and let me do mine." She was silent for a moment, then said, "You're the strongest person I've ever met, Bertha." I answered gently, "Not strong, Amelia. I'm just someone who reached the limit of weakness." I hung up, sat down, and watched the lavender pots lean with the breeze. I remembered the first days after being thrown out of my home, the night under a freezing overpass, the rain mixing with my tears, and now I was sitting in the light, no more shaking, no more shrinking. I took a small card from my pocket, the foundation's card, with the line, "Second Morning Foundation, because tomorrow still belongs to you." I smiled. Yes, tomorrow still belongs to me. That noon, Camille stopped by. She looked at me, eyes bright. "You look so much lighter," I answered, my voice softer. "I just finished a long dinner that I didn't have to swallow with bitterness." We both laughed, our laughter dissolving into the wind. I looked out at the bay, where the ripples caught the sunlight. My life, finally, was as calm as the water. No more proving, no more clawing back, only peace, the greatest asset I've ever owned. A week after the reconciliation dinner, I received a voicemail from Logan. His voice was low and slow, trying to recover its usual calm. "Mom, I just want to say I respect your decision. If you think that foundation is a good thing, I won't stop you anymore. I just hope you understand someone manipulated me. Someone is taking advantage of you." I listened to the whole thing and said nothing. His voice still sounded like it used to, part tender, part self-pitying. The difference is, back then I believed. Now I could hear every layer of pretense in the tone. After Amelia listened, she said only one sentence. "Don't respond. Let the line run long. People staging a play usually trip over their own lines." I laughed. "You always know how to make my heart feel lighter," she replied softly. "I'm just doing my part. As for you, just live well. That's the highest form of payback." And that's exactly what I did. 3 weeks later, Second Morning Foundation held our first Community Day, an open, free event for Sarasota residents, hosted at the Convention Center just 3 blocks from Logan's company. I didn't choose that location by accident. I chose it so the son who once looked down on his mother would see clearly that she still stands under her own name. That morning, the sun was a pale gold. Over 200 people came, seniors, social workers, volunteers, and local press. The morning session was a workshop, Protecting Seniors from Financial Abuse, led by Amelia and Dr. Lila. At noon, we held a no-conditions meal. Anyone who came could sit and eat, no questions, about name, age, or income. In the afternoon, we gathered signatures for the Florida Elder Asset Protection Charter, a pledge initiated by Second Morning Foundation. On stage, when I spoke, cameras flashed nonstop. I kept it short. "We can't fix the past, but we can stop it from repeating." The applause rolled on, blending with the sound of the bay in the distance. In that moment, I felt fairness late, but right on time. 2 days later, the Florida Tribune ran a half-page article, a big headline at the top of the society section. "A 70-year-old woman creates a foundation to protect seniors after nearly losing her own assets to a scheme." The piece didn't name Logan or Taryn, but it was detailed enough that anyone who knew them would understand. Camille finished reading and laughed until tears came. "Newspapers can sun-dry the truth even better than a court," I answered quietly. "Sometimes the gentlest light exposes the liar best." Meanwhile, the Foundation's board met and passed the Name and Asset Shield, an 8-page instrument stating, "Any change to Foundation assets requires at least 4 out of 5 signatures." The name Bertha Hale is permanently tied to the Foundation as honorary founder and cannot be removed, transferred, or replaced in any legal publication. Any claim of control from family members of the founder is blocked at the bylaw level, no court required. After signing, Evan, our chief accountant, said, "Now no one can touch a penny of this foundation. Mrs. Hale, you can sleep well." I answered, half joking and half true. "Sleeping well, sure, but I'm keeping the doorbell camera on 24/7 in case uninvited guests drop by." And they did drop by. One weekday afternoon, while I was making tea, Taryn appeared. She wore a cheap floral dress, holding a bargain bin bouquet of carnations, her face pinched into a gentle smile. "Hi, Mom," she said, sweet but shaking. "I just wanted to talk. Not about the past, just we're trying to repair things." I looked at her. This was the woman who once stood in my home and ordered me around like help. Now she stood outside my door, eyes hollowed by shadows. "Taryn," I said softly, "I don't hate you, but don't mistake silence for weakness. I'm choosing silence so I can live the rest of my life in peace." She pressed her lips together, lowered her head, and said nothing more. "Understand," she murmured, then turned away. When the door closed, the cheap carnation scent lingered sharp, acrid, like an apology that never formed into words. After that, news about Logan started to spread. His small firm, Hale Property Group, lost 3 major contracts in a single week. One client even called Camille directly. "So his sister is the founder of a foundation protecting seniors? Oh, that's interesting." I heard the story and only smiled. Not smug, just aware that sometimes karma doesn't need a push. One afternoon, Hector Ruiz, the building's security guard, brought a newspaper. He said, "Here, look, they just ran a new piece. They're calling you the one who lights a lamp for Sarasota's elders." I chuckled. "My lamp is small, Hector. But it's enough to help a few people see where they're going." That night, Camille arrived with a thick stack of files. She sat down and kept it brief. The rest let the law speak. I understood. It meant the forgery prosecution was headed to court. She looked at me, eyes both firm and sad. "You don't need to do anything more. The evidence is enough. Now it's their turn to bury themselves." I nodded without speaking. After she left, I took a small note and wrote in purple ink, "Enough evidence." Then I pinned it on the little bulletin board in my living room right beside the photo of me with the women from Community Day. A breeze drifted in from the balcony and made the note flutter, as if nodding in agreement. The next morning I woke early. Sarasota's sky was crystal clear, seabirds skimming the bay. I brewed tea and opened the windows to let the breeze in. Inside, nothing felt heavy anymore. I knew that in a few weeks there would be a decisive hearing, not for me to win or lose, but so the truth would have a place to stand. I stepped onto the balcony and watered the lavender. The purple scent spread sweet and clean. Each drop that fell felt like it was washing away another stain from the past. Camille once said, "You know, they're digging their own hole and don't even see it. You just need to stand back and watch." And that's exactly what I did. I just watched, no hatred, no gloating, quietly witnessing how they buried themselves with their own ambition. At noon, Amelia called, "Mrs. Hale, the court just sent the hearing date. The 14th of next month. Be ready." I answered, "I'm ready, Amelia. Truth is, I've been ready for a long time." After the call, I folded, the phone closed, and stared into the distance. Out on the water, white boats dotted the deep blue. I thought maybe life is like the sea. No matter how rough the waves, it always returns to stillness. I whispered, as if to the sea, to Frank, and to everyone who has passed through my life. No more resentment. Only the truth. On the 14th of that month, Sarasota's sky didn't have a single cloud. I stepped out of the taxi and stood before the county courthouse, feeling the salty bay breeze telling me, "Breathe today." Inside, the hallways were bright and cool. Wooden benches, the smell of paper and old coffee. I took the front row seat between Camille and Amelia. Both were silent, only the soft rustle of pages turning, like a clock counting beats. Ahead of us, Logan sat with his attorney, suit and tie in place, but his eyes were hollow. Taryn beside him, hair pulled tight, gripping her purse until her knuckles went white. I looked at them with no hate. Only a quiet regret, like standing on the shore watching someone you once loved walk into the water. The hearing began. Judge Margaret Rowe, the same judge who had dismissed the guardianship petition, presided again. She looked around the room and spoke clearly. Today, the court hears State of Florida versus Logan Hale and Taryn Hale regarding charges of document fraud, signature forgery, and attempted misappropriation of assets from the nonprofit Second Morning Foundation. With each word, I saw Logan's shoulders tighten. I didn't feel joy or sorrow, only a sense that something fair was being set back in its rightful place. The prosecution went first. They presented a line of evidence: signature forensics, surveillance, cognitive assessment, bank logs, file metadata. On the large screen, images appeared one by one, handwriting enlarged 117%, an unnatural curve in the H, Taryn's IP address, the foundation meeting. Video shot at a cafe that was closed for renovations. The prosecutor's voice rang steady. This is not a technical mistake. This is a deliberate plan to seize nonprofit assets. Amelia sat beside me with hands folded, eyes calm. When it was her turn, she stepped to the lectern like she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "Your Honor," she said, "we are not here to defeat anyone. We are here to show that the law is still a place seniors can come to when their own family turns away." She laid out each timeline, each email, each cross-checked proof. Her voice didn't shake, didn't swell, just steady, like the heartbeat of reason. Then came the defense. Logan's attorney tried the familiar angle. "My clients believe Mrs. Hale has been psychologically influenced and is easily manipulated by outside parties, especially Attorney Park and Miss Camille Drake." The room went dead quiet. Amelia didn't rush to answer. She smiled lightly and opened the file, back on the table. "With the court's permission," she said, "we present the video assessment from Sarasota Neuro Center, where Mrs. Hale scored a perfect result on cognitive testing. The report is signed by Dr. Helen Graves, independently notarized. And, please note, the defense previously filed its own document confirming Mrs. Hale's lucidity to support another case also filed by them." A murmur moved through the room. Judge Rowe raised an eyebrow. "You claim she lacks capacity, yet 2 months ago you used that same capacity to argue her right to refuse a guarantee for another relative? These are opposing arguments." The court notes the contradiction. The lawyer stalled, shuffling pages, his voice thinner. I looked at Logan's sweat beading on his forehead while Taryn turned her face away. At lunch, the court recessed. I stepped into the hallway and took a deep breath. Outside the glass doors, sunlight flashed off the white stone steps. Amelia set a hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded. "I am. Maybe because today I don't have to defend myself. The truth is doing it for me." In the afternoon, after 2 more hours of argument, Judge Rowe returned to the bench. She glanced over the thick file and pronounced each word clearly. "The Sarasota County Court dismisses the defense's requests in full. The court confirms that Mrs. Bertha Hale is fully competent and the lawful sole founder of Second Morning Foundation. All acts of document forgery, signature fraud, and nonprofit asset misappropriation are referred for criminal investigation at the county prosecutor's recommendation." The gavel struck 3 firm knocks, like a pledge from justice. When court adjourned, I walked out with Camille and Amelia. A strong breeze lifted the edge of my blouse. Logan was waiting on the steps, face pale, eyes dulled by sleepless nights. "Mom," he called, "did you really want it to go this far?" I looked him in the eye. "No, Logan, I didn't, but you chose." He pressed his lips together, ready to speak, then stopped the silence of someone who knows no words can undo what's been done. I turned away. I didn't look back. That evening, the 3 of us, me, Camille, and Amelia, sat in my small kitchen. Camille baked peach cobbler, the sweetness filling the room. No cheering, no toasts. We just ate, quietly. I said softly, "For the first time in years, I can breathe." Amelia smiled, "Because you're not carrying anything anymore. Wind is just wind now, not the past." We laughed together, small laughter, like a breeze through leaves light enough not to crack what was mending inside. 2 days later, the phone rang. It was Prosecutor Miller. "Mrs. Hale, official notice. The review panel has approved criminal charges on 3 counts: document fraud, signature forgery, and attempted misappropriation of nonprofit assets." I closed my eyes and listened to his even tone. "I understand," I said. "Thank you for doing your part." I wasn't happy, and I didn't gloat. I just felt a warm, quiet move through my chest, like when the last storm breaks and you finally hear the real ocean. That night, I sat at the table, opened my notebook, and wrote a few lines in purple ink. I will not collapse. I will not disappear. I set down the pen and looked out the window. The night outside was smooth as paper. I knew those words weren't for anyone else. They were for the version of me who once shook and believed life had closed. A few weeks later, the headline went official. Hale Property Group suspends operations. CEO Logan Hale under investigation. I didn't read the whole thing. I skimmed and folded the paper, tucking it under a lavender pot. According to Camille, Taryn had left town, probably back to her parents' place in Maine. No more knocks on the door, no more lurking letters. Just me, the little condo by the bay, and each morning's sunrise. I sat on the porch, watching the water shimmer like silver. The waves kept time, and the breeze lifted the lavender's scent into the air. A hot cup of tea warmed my hands. On the table, my notebook lay open to a new page, blank, snow white. I didn't write anything. I just looked at it and smiled. After all these years, real peace had begun. No more turning the key twice. No more waiting for a phone call to explain myself. Only me, a mother who walked through the storm, didn't let hatred drown her, and used it to plant flowers. The bay wind brushed my shoulder, whispering like a last message. The road you chose, I've walked my part of it. Now live, Bertha. I closed my eyes, listened to the even rhythm of the waves, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to keep watch. Only stillness remained and the small, steady voice of truth, still whispering in the wind, I will not collapse. I will not disappear. I'm only beginning again. 1 year after the present. Verdict. Autumn came to Sarasota with light breezes carrying salt and the gentle clap of waves. My condo was the same, small, bright, full of lavender. But this morning it was livelier than usual. Today was Second Morning Foundation's annual appreciation day. The hall was simply decorated, white folding chairs in neat rows, a coffee table against the wall, the scent of waffles mixing with fresh ink. Along the corridor, photo walls recorded a year of work. New Monday sessions, free legal clinics, therapy groups, the faces of women who once arrived in tears now smiling wide. I sat in the front row in an ivory sweater, my old silver pin one of the last things from when Frank was alive on my chest. Camille bustled around checking sound. Amelia stood in the wings, organizing remarks for the board. When it was my turn to step on stage, warm yellow light fell over me. I didn't carry notes. I looked out at the audience, over 200 people, mostly silver-haired women, a few wearing freshly printed staff badges. I smiled, then said, "The day I was thrown out of my home in the rain, I thought I'd reached the end. Turns out, it was only the beginning." I want to say this to anyone who thinks they're too late, too old, or too weak. The second half of life isn't weaker than the first. It's just different. We finally know we don't need anyone's permission to live. The room went silent. A beat, then waves of applause. In the fourth row, a small, short-haired woman with red eyes stood and whispered, "Because of you, I dared to fight for custody of my grandchild." The court ruled in my favor. I smiled and bowed, not out of pride, but because I knew my journey had helped someone else stand up. When the program ended, I left the stage and let the lights fall on younger women, the ones now running the foundation. They talked about expansion to Orlando, community medical funds, and financial skills classes. I edged back, stood by the photo wall, sipped coffee, and listened. I don't need the spotlight anymore. Enough. I've been there, spoken, been interrupted, been dismissed, been forgotten. Now I want to hear other voices, clear, strong, free. As people headed out, I saw an envelope on the reception table with my name on it. No sender listed, just Logan's law firm logo in the corner. I opened it. Inside was a document ending all claims on assets and disputes. signed by his attorney. No apology. Not a single personal line. I folded it, slipped it into my bag, and didn't bother reading closely. Some things you don't need to hear to know you've won. That evening, I opened the living room cabinet. In the top drawer were a few keepsakes. The bracelet Frank gave me on our wedding day, an unused plane ticket to Paris, and the first paycheck I ever received from the clinic, my youthful, messy Bertha Hale still on it. I wrapped them in a small box and labeled it, "To the Second Morning Foundation." I know. Longer keep things for myself. Keeping only weighs me down. I've learned forgiveness has weight too, but it's far lighter than resentment. In the days after, I returned to my routine. Morning walks along the bay. I wore a straw hat and sneakers, sometimes stopping to feed crumbs to pigeons. Many people recognized me. A young woman with a paper bag approached, smiling. "You're the one who started Second Morning, right? I watched your interview. You're the woman who didn't disappear." I smiled and nodded. "No, I just showed up again right on time." One afternoon, Camille and I planted 3 small apple trees behind the house. Sarasota soil isn't ideal for apples, but Camille wanted to try. While we covered the roots, I said, "I might not live to eat the fruit." She laughed. "But you believe the trees will grow, right?" I nodded. "Faith needs planting too, it isn't for picking." We sat on the wooden bench, watching the saplings lean in the sun, pale leaves trembling. I realized I no longer lived to brace myself. I lived to pass things on. A month later, Camille proposed a new class at the foundation. I think we should offer writing. Not to publish so retired women can learn to tell their own stories. They might be poor or alone, but each one has a voice. And a story is something no one can steal. I looked at my sister and saw light flare in her eyes. I smiled. "All right then, I'll be the first student." Now, every Monday morning, I wake early. I still brew tea, open the balcony doors, and let in the sound of waves and wind. The lavender still blooms, and in the yard the 3 apple trees have grown to my shoulder. I sit down to write, not to relive pain, but to keep a promise to myself that I will not collapse, will not disappear, and will live the rest of my life with the calm of someone who has seen justice with her own eyes. I don't think about Logan or Taryn anymore. They belong to a closed chapter. I only hope they learn what it took me a lifetime to understand. When greed replaces love, people lose both. As evening falls, I step onto the porch and watch the sun sink behind Sarasota Bay. A thin layer of gold spreads across the water, warm and a little sad, like the last note of a song just finished. I close my eyes and say quietly to myself, "Thank you for giving me a second morning." If my story makes you pause even for a beat to breathe, to remember someone, or to believe there's still time, tell me where you're listening from. Maybe it's a small kitchen that still smells like morning coffee, a porch damp with dew, or a path you walk every day. I want to hear it, because I believe somewhere out there are people like me learning to begin again, even halfway through life. Leave me a line, a hello, or just the name of your city. To me, every comment is one hand taking another. Every like, share, or subscribe isn't just a number, it's an extra chair set at the table so any woman who has ever felt invisible can sit down, take a long breath, and know I'm still here. Thank you for staying with me to the very end of this journey. If you're waiting for a beginning of your own, I hope your second morning arrives peaceful, gentle, and bright enough for you to see yourself again.